So today we've got a 2012 Ford Fiesta 1.2 Zetec engine, petrol, with roughly 65,000 miles on the clock. The Fiesta's in for a service today, and as part of that service I'll be doing an oil and filter change. So as always, I like to take the cap off and pull the dipstick up a bit, just to allow air into the engine while it's draining. It drains a bit more smoothly. So yeah, we get it up in the air, everything's accessible from underneath. Right, so underneath the Fiesta, you can see the sump bung here. It's a 13mm. The oil filter's around this side, which we'll get to shortly. 13. That's just a spin-on oil filter. So I've got my single hex socket, 13mm. Just want to crack this loose. There's nothing wrong with using a spanner, but sometimes you look at a sump plug and you can see it's got a little bit of wear on it. You've got a lot less chance of slipping with a single hex socket and rounding it off. It's fairly hot, so it'll probably come out pretty quick. Yeah, not too fast. Right, I'll just leave that there to drain down for a while. So while that's draining down, I'm going to crack the oil filter loose. I like to use a pair of slide grips. There's plenty of different tools you can use to remove an oil filter. These are my sort of go-to. You just need to be mindful that you will get some oil run out of here. So I've still got the drain tub underneath the car. So when you change these oil filters, it's a good idea to make sure this seal actually comes off with the filter, because they do come out quite easily, and sometimes they can get left behind and stuck on the engine block. And if you don't notice that, you can spin the new oil filter on over the top of it and you won't get an oil tight seal. It'll make a bit of a mess when you start it up. So I've got my new oil filter here. It's a good idea to put a light smear of grease or oil on the rubber seal, just to help prevent it from sticking for the next person to remove it. That's all I normally do. That's all you need, really. And then you just spin these on and do them up hand tight. Quite an easy one to change. I've got some brake and clutch cleaner, which is a very good degreaser. Give that a bit of a wipe off. And that's it, that's one oil filter changed. So before you put the sump plug back in, it's a good idea to check the seal This one has got like a rubber O-ring, which looks absolutely fine. Just make sure it hasn't got any splits in it where it's been crushed. A lot of sump plugs have a copper washer or an aluminium washer. Again, you just got to make sure it hasn't been crushed and split. So we'll go ahead and spin that in. That's it, that's tight enough. Righto, we'll crack on and drop that down and get some oil back in it. Right, so before I start putting the oil in, just make sure the dipstick's up. Again, to allow the air to come out of the engine this time. And hopefully stop it all glugging back up through the funnel. So when you collect your parts from wherever you go, your local retailer, all they'll ask you for is the registration of your vehicle. They'll be able to recommend a type and a quantity of engine oil and your filter. You might want to pick up a new sump plug. Sometimes that's a good idea, just for a couple of quid. I mean, your oil filter on this engine, you shouldn't pay any more than £10 really, and 5 litre tub of oil, around about £60 mark at this time anyway. This engine, I'm told, holds about 3.8 litres of engine oil. So I'm just going to start by putting in at 3.6, then we'll run it up and see how that goes. It's a good idea to put slightly less than recommended in, and then top it up in small dribs and drabs rather than having to get back underneath and drop a bit of oil out if you put too much in. Because too much oil can cause a lot of problems, a bit like not enough can. Right, so I'm just going to fire it up and let it tick over, make sure the oil pressure light goes out. Yeah, the light's gone straight out. You don't need to rev it. It's actually not a very good idea to rev an engine that's been drained and refilled. It can take a little while for it to start picking up the oil and circulating. So that's all you need to do. So that's allowed the oil to fill up all the galleries and the filter. I'll let that stand now for 2 or 3 minutes and settle, and then we'll check the oil and see where the level's at. Okay, so this has stood now for 3 or 4 minutes, settled down. So I'm just going to take the dipstick out and give that a clean off. Put it back in, make sure it goes all the way down. And as you can see, it's just touching the maximum mark there. So I'm going to leave it at that. The longer you leave the engine, the oil level will rise slightly because it's still trickling down into the sump very slowly, and that's a pretty good place to be at. So all that's left now would be to give it a run around the block and make sure there's no leaks. Well, thanks for watching. Hopefully the video's been of some help for you. And if it has, please consider hitting like and subscribe. It will help our channel out no end. Cheers.